Pledge of Allegiance. It is the pledge.
Would you like to sing the national anthem this evening?
There were a couple that did, but the ones that were in the group didn't use were the commissioner. So I guess we can choose, select those and they change them.
Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Commissioner Topchin, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Maggio,
Here.
Commissioner Gregoire,
Here.
Commissioner O'Keefe, Commissioner Topchin,
Here.
Commissioner Charity,
Here.
Vice Chair Bergstein,
Here.
Chair Kirpies.
Here. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda?
I move approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the June 14th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Move to approve as submitted.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to public comments. Looks like we have a few here. We'll start with Eric Schmidt, to be followed by Elliot Wachtel.
Not to make my comment at this point.
Could you pull this up just a little? Oh, I'm sorry. You said you don't want to.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
not going to make a comment now. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Elliot Wachtel.
Good evening, council member. I'm here regarding the retrofit that I now found out that my building has to have. My estimates now are between $110,000 and $160,000, and I was told it would take 2 to 3 months to do. I have some questions. Number one, I was told by the people that have given me these estimates that the driveway to the parking lots are going to be blocked off for about 2 months, perhaps a little more. What do I do when the tenants complain about the parking not being available? Do they park in the street? Who pays for that? Do I have to relocate the parking to somewhere else and pay for that? They're going to complain about the noise, which is going to be about 2 months. They also said there might be some minor structural damage that I'll have to repair. I'm concerned about all these costs. So I'd like to get some feedback as to what to do with all these issues. I have tenants that complain that after I've put in a brand new air conditioning unit, that the oscillating factor wasn't proper. I have a tenant that complains that the heater in their unit wasn't sufficient, and I put in a new heater, but yet I'm still taken to the city with even minor details. So this is a major issue for me, and it's a very structural issue, and I'm torn because now I'm getting a lot of calls from real estate agents saying, what are you going to do now with that big cost and the possibility of what's going to happen in Santa Monica when rent control really hits hard and you can't raise more than 5%. It's a tremendous dilemma for owners and builders and landlords.
Include your remarks.
Yes.
Okay. Could I just have you say your name for the record into the microphone?
Elliot Wachtel.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're not able to respond directly, but I can tell you that those are very good questions, and you should contact City Hall tomorrow. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but you contact City Hall because the commission has taken action on a habitability plan that you'll want to review or you want to work with the city on when you do decide to do your retrofitting.
Actually, thank you,
Okay.
but I did go to the city this last week, and they told
I
me,
can't have this back and forth, unfortunately.
okay, I did go to the city, and they referred me to come here today.
Thank you. Are there any other public speakers with comments?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. We will move on to the Director Manager's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, we will review the community input through the ad hoc subcommittee update. There'll be the announcement of the annual general adjustment, and we'll also hear an appeal. At the July 12th meeting, the Commission will consider a recommendation for City Council on cost sharing. There'll be 2 appeals that night. On July 26th, there'll be a report on the city's community-based cultural plan from the arts manager, Andrew Campbell. There'll be 2 appeals on that night. And on August 9th, we have scheduled 2 appeals.
I have a request for an item for a to-be-determined date meeting. There was an article in today's Beverly Press talking about Los Angeles City Council member Paul Koretz arranging for additional legal services for tenants who are either being harassed or facing Ellis. I know our city already has legal services available for our tenants. If we could have like a brief presentation just to outline what those services are so we can make that more public, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to Commissioner comments. Would anyone like to make any comments? No? All right. Then we'll move right into our new business, which is the appeals. The first appeal we'll be hearing is Appeal D4287, 969 North Larrabee Street, number 1, rent reduction hearing. I believe this was appealed by both the tenant and the landlord. Do we have both a representative from the tenants here, or the tenant? You are? Okay. And do we have a representative for the landlord? It's up to her. Yeah. So what we'll do is, Ms. Regan, the first, which one filed the appeal first? That determines who goes first, right?
Right.
Yes, it was the tenant.
The
in this
tenant?
case.
Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to hear a staff report, and then we'll have the tenant come up. You'll have 5 minutes that you can present your the circumstances of your case. You can divide that time up however you'd like, 3, 2, just so you have some time at the end for rebuttal. And then when you finish your first segment of time, then the landlord will have 5 minutes to present her side, and then whatever remaining time you have, we'll go back to you. Okay? You will have 5 total, but you'll be able to divide that however you'd like between the 2 speaking times. Sure, we can time you. And if you don't use all of it the first time, whatever remaining, or if you go over if you say 3, 2, and you go over 3 minutes, it's just whatever remaining you have of the 5 is what you get at the end. Okay? So we're going to first hear a staff report, and then we'll ask each of you to come up.
Thank you. In this case, the tenant and the landlord have both appealed the hearing examiner's decision. The landlord has appealed the rent reductions that were imposed for the kitchen and bath linoleum and the air conditioning. The tenant has appealed the overcharge decision as well as the denial of a rent reduction for storage. The hearing examiner found that the landlord had not collected amounts in excess of the maximum allowable rent because he had only increased the rent by the annual general adjustment allowed by the rent stabilization ordinance. The tenants claimed that these increases were not allowed while there were still outstanding rent reductions in place, but the hearing examiner correctly concluded that the ordinance does not prohibit an owner from implementing the general adjustment under these circumstances, and staff recommends that the commission uphold this part of the decision. There's also substantial evidence supporting the hearing examiner's denial of a rent reduction for the storage. The evidence shows that the landlord didn't provide the tenant with a storage space. Therefore, staff recommends that the commission affirm the hearing examiner's decision here as well. With respect to the landlord's appeal, staff also recommends affirming the hearing examiner's decision. There's substantial evidence supporting the decision to award a rent decrease for both the linoleum and the air conditioner. The evidence shows that the linoleum in both the kitchen and the bathroom is over 7 years old and must be replaced according to the maintenance schedule in the ordinance. Similarly, the evidence shows that the landlord rented the unit to the tenant with an air conditioner. Thus, it's considered a housing service under the RSO, and the landlord must maintain it. This is undisputed evidence, and there's undisputed evidence that's showing that the unit is not functioning properly at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Regan at this time? No? You do? Okay.
If you can clarify, I'm really confused as to pages 51 through 63 in our packet appears to be from another hearing. Was that entered as evidence by one of the parties?
It's pages 51 through...
1 through 63.
So this looks like it pertains to the air conditioning.
Keep going.
Oh, I see. Yes. So this was part of, was this part of the tenant's application or the appeal itself? I think this was submitted with the appeal, so there were pieces from, looks like both the decision of the hearing examiner and part of the evidence to support their appeal. But this is all, it's evidence that had been submitted, so it's not new evidence. But it was just part of the packet of the appeal that they
Confusing.
submitted.
And then on page 48 and page 64, where it references the parking space, it says 1. And I just want to make sure there's nothing in the record. I think there's 16 units in the building. Are there 16 parking spaces, and that tenant was originally assigned parking space number 1, or were they assigned a singular parking space?
So parking is not an issue.
But that would be if the original, my question, if that original parking space number 1 had a storage unit in it. So I'm not clear if it was just they were being assigned a single parking space and that's what that 1, or if there was a number 1 parking space, and if that original space had a storage unit, that would affect my decision as to where they're currently parking.
I say, which page of the record are you referring to?
Both on page 48 and page 64.
What's that? Well, generally, when it says 1 parking space, that usually indicates that there's 1 as opposed to 2 parking spaces. And in this case, they also go on to say that it's covered and security. And it doesn't look like in the record on the hearing examiner's decision that was an issue, that it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last question on page 71, I think it's just it was an error on the prior owner. Under 30-day notice of change in terms of tenancy, it lists the address as 696 Larrabee. I'm assuming that was just an error on...
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will hear from the tenant, Mr. Alfawaz? Alfawaz. All right, if you could please come up. If I could first have you state your name, go ahead and we'll have you speak right here from the podium. If I could have you state your...
And I'm not a citizen, so please excuse my accent. I've been in America.
Before you begin, do you want to break up your time? Do you want us to time you?
No. I think I will go. It may take me time to explain everything.
Okay, and then whatever time of the 5 minutes you might have remaining, you can use.
Yeah, I'll try to be as clear as possible to all of you guys. So I've been in this unit for over 4 years, and we've been having a lot of issues with Miss Montgomery that we cannot, she doesn't do any maintenance at the building until we go through the due process of complaining to the city. And has been my issues as well with all the issues I raised in the hearing, like the exterior paint, the interior paint, and other issues. With regard, so I appealed the storage as well as the rent decrease. For the rent decrease, because I feel I deserve a rent decrease because Ms. Montgomery have been I have to go through the city for every single maintenance issues without she addressing it. And then we have this other issues in the building that she's changing the manager every 2 to 3 months. So we don't know who the manager is until we ask her who the manager is, and then we ask her consistently to post a post that states who the manager is in order to go there and complain about the maintenance. So it's been an issue since I moved in January 2014 with maintenance issues. That's why I feel as a tenant that I deserve a rent decrease because there are a lot of issues that Ms. Montgomery has violated the city code. This is one. With regards to the storage space, Ms. Montgomery testified in the hearing that the storage space is assigned for individuals who lives in the building and have a one-bedroom apartment versus a single apartment like me. I'm living in a studio apartment. I told Ms. Montgomery that Ms. Thomas, who lived above me in apartment 9, lived in a studio apartment as well, and had the storage. So did I had the storage, and I was offered the storage when I moved in. Miss Montgomery offered me the storage when I first moved in and did not complain and did not ask me to move my stuff until I complained about the maintenance. And then when I filed on the city, Miss Montgomery used it as a retaliation to me. So I strongly believe that it's housing services. I have provided the hearing commissioner a letter from the manager, who was a manager at that time, Miss Natalie Thomas, and she was a witness, the position that I had my belonging, and I moved my belonging when I moved in to the apartment. Miss Montgomery has argued and testified that she testified in the hearing that it's only for one-bedroom apartment, but there are many tenants who lives now in the building in one-bedroom apartment. They don't have a storage as well. So she was offering the storage to the tenant regardless if they are living in a single or two-bedroom or one-bedroom apartment. She offered it to me like the AC. She argued that there was no AC in the building, in the apartment, but there was AC before I moved in. She testified that the AC was not there. She appealed it, and now she fixed the AC because she knows whatever she's saying, it was not true. So now she fixed the AC. So if you are appealed, there are inconsistency with Ms. Montgomery testimony since the hearing. So in the hearing she said that the AC was not there when I moved in, and I installed the AC. I said to her no, and I provided pictures of the AC was there when I first moved in. Just 2 weeks ago, she installed the AC there. Then if you believe that the AC was not there, why did you fix it now? Why did you appeal? So she fixed the AC and she provided me with a new AC. Same happened with flooring as well. She appealed the flooring, she fixed the flooring right now. So there are inconsistency in her testimony from the beginning. Same with the storage. She said that it was not provided in the registration. It's the same with it's the same with the parking space. She offered me the parking space with the storage, and I said to her, I have an SUV car. I need to move to a bigger space. So she offered me to another space which is next to the gate and doesn't have a storage there. But she said you could park there and you could get the storage. I've been in this apartment for over 3 years, and she never said that, but I believe it's just a retaliation because I filed my complaint about the maintenance in the city.
Thank you, and your time
And,
has expired. That was 5 minutes, right?
Just last sentence,
I'm sorry, I can't.
because I have an evidence to show you guys.
I'm sorry?
I have an evidence to show you guys.
The-
It's related to I have the same, because my lease,
Is the evidence something you gave to the hearing examiner?
no, but it's related to the appeal.
So we can't accept new evidence, unfortunately. We have to base our decision on on the hearing examiner's evidence that she reviewed. So no new evidence.
Okay, then, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions, or does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Ms. Montgomery, or representative? You also have 5 minutes. If you could state your name for the record, and do you want to, is there going to be 2 of you speaking? You may sit down with the microphone. Will you be speaking from the seated position? Okay. I'm not sure if it's on. Can someone? There we go.
So I'm sorry, I have accent too.
That's fine.
But however, good evening. I have a tell her about. He said.
Can we start with your name, and then we'll go ahead?
Susie Montgomery.
Thank you.
I don't know which complaint I should have started. I had rented to him that one single apartment. Single apartment was no storage. And they parked next to the gate, and the same place he always had that parking lot. I never changed the parking lot for him. And he doesn't have any storage. But number 9, when he moved out, she moved out, he put some stuff in her storage. And then I tell them, this is not yours. This is for new tenant for number 9. And he talked about registration. I have a registration for him too, because with the city, I rented, I have registration. And also about that air condition. Air condition, it was not there. Old air condition, I don't know who put it in there. However, he wants the air condition to be changed. And I told him I'm not going to change it. I didn't, in rental agreement, they show it, no air condition. And he signed it. I have it with me. I can give it to you. You can see it. But as long as he was over there, he asked about air condition, then I put that air condition too this time, because I want to stay there because he's only one person and he's not coming any problem. But I have only problem because I don't know why he want to change the floor, bathroom floor, kitchen floor, air condition. I already put all brand new for him. And I give him my manager, new manager, help him to put the curtain for him and help him and clean everything. And we want to be satisfaction with everything we can do it for him. But the other things he asking about that, I'm coming every day to the city. I don't come to the city. If somebody complain, I have to come, I come. And for rent increase, he was 4 years over there. When he rented, I have increased 2 times. And I have a management company, and I give it to the manager for 3 months. he doesn't want to do it because he get a big job. Now I only have one manager in the building, and I had it before manager too. And that place always has a manager. I have 2 managers for outside and inside before. Now I have only one manager. And what else I forget to say about complaint he has. He has about that I don't remember what else I have to go. But I do have everything, evidence in here. If you want it, I can show you. I repaired that floor, kitchen floor, bathroom floor. He has only one room, single room. We painted 2 times. Whatever he wants, and we painted, and we changed the floor. We changed the new air condition and new flooring, new, what else? Yeah, kitchen floor, everything we changed it, whatever he wants. I don't know what else we have to do.
Thank you. And we have the evidence that you made reference to in our packets, so we already have a copy of that. The registration forms, all of that, we do have it in our packets. We do have copies of it already.
Yes,
All right?
but I can, if you wanted anything else, I have it in here, I can.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yes. How many units are in your building? How many units are in your building? How many units? How many apartments? 60? 16. 16. And you have a on-site manager, is that correct?
I had it outside manager.
Do you have posted hours, office hours?
Yes.
And you have the
Speak into
posted
the
hours?
microphone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there any other questions?
Chair, I just want to clarify something.
I have
The-
one more thing.
No.
Is
Yeah,
last,
and sorry,
Probably-
if we have any questions, so you can respond.
During my comments, sorry. Not now, later.
You don't have any questions?
Not
Okay.
now.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll begin our deliberations. Would
guess I
anyone
could-
like to begin?
Just want to maybe clarify, Ms. Reagan, or maybe Gloria can. This letter from Natalie Thomas, we have only one letter, right? Which is on page 17 of the packet.
Right,
That's the only letter we have,
correct.
which is undated, but it's signed, right? But if we read under the summary and analysis, on page 29, it says the letter from Thomas is undated and unsigned. I'm not sure if that's the same letter they're making reference to. And also it mentions that the building was managed by that person in 2014, but the letter says 2013. I guess my question is, was there another letter, or this is the letter, or it's just an error?
I believe that's the only letter, but I'll take a look back through the evidence.
It could be just a typo, maybe.
Do you have other questions in the meantime?
In the meantime, I want to ask if there is a process for the examiners during the review of the complaint to contact the person who is not present at the hearing. Is there a procedure for that? Because we have Natalie's and Ms. Thomas's cell phone number included. If the letter is undated, could the examiner contact that person and just clarify and ask some questions if there's a procedure like that? I just wanted to clarify.
Commissioners, I apologize. That letter that's in your packet was submitted with the appeal. It should not have been included in your packet because it's new evidence.
Oh,
The
okay.
letter that was actually submitted at the hearing, and which is not in your packet, is here.
Oh.
So I'm going to just distribute that to you.
Okay, got it.
And that would be the responsibility of the person, the tenant anyway, right? If the hearing examiner wouldn't be expected to call a number to answer questions, it would be the tenant's responsibility to bring that person, present that person, or to provide
Oh,
answers to those.
that's right. And the only letter submitted at the hearing was the unsigned letter that the hearing examiner references.
Okay, so that answers the second
Yes.
question, obviously,
Thank
clearly.
you.
And if there is no procedure, I just wanted to know what the procedure is like. All right, if I just review that letter and,
It appears to be the same letter, but not without the signature and the
okay,
It-
so
It's
this
not,
was the
it's-
original
the
one.
dates are different, so it does appear to be a different letter, because it says 2014, I think, in the unsigned
Right.
letter, and 2013 in the one submitted with the appeal.
Oh,
So you can, in other words, just ignore
Ignore
what was
the
submitted
the
with the
other one.
appeal, what's, I
Got it.
guess,
All
what's
right. Yeah, that
17 in your packet, and just focus on that letter.
all right, that explains, yeah, because it confused me. Thank you, Allison.
any other question, or would you like to begin our deliberations?
All right, I'll start. Yes, I wanted to address first the storage issue, and it's very clear that when there was a re-registration of the apartment, there was never ever any mention of a storage bin, and there was never anything in writing in relationship to the owner saying that you may have that space and that it goes with that apartment. In regard to the linoleum, and it's a requirement. It's our ordinance that says linoleums do have to be changed every 7 years, as carpets do. And so I support that evidence. In regard to the air conditioning, and it says here with respect to the air conditioning, the hearing examiner weighed conflicting evidence, and the evidence that the housing service was actually provided by the landlord. Those are my comments at the moment.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, my comments are clearly that the landlord and tenant aren't getting along, but I want you both to understand that let the let the RSO be the bad guy and the good guy here. And what I'm trying to say is that the laws are quite clear that the linoleum floor needed to be in like-new condition, and if it was not in like-new condition, then it needed to be replaced every 7 years, and the evidence was quite clear that it was not in like-new condition. As far as the evidence presented for the air conditioning unit, there is clear evidence that it was in the unit when the tenant occupied the unit at first. So we can't overrule the hearing examiner's evidence when it seems to be that it was very clear in her discretion to rule in the way that she ruled. As far as the overcharge situation, the general adjustment is clear in the RSO that you are allowed to make general adjustments to the rent, even though you're in the middle of a dispute with your landlord. And as far as the storage, you know, we do have evidence from you as the tenant that you were offered a space and you chose a space without storage. So it's going to be hard for us as a body sitting here looking at the evidence that was presented to award you a rent for the reduction for a storage space that your car unit doesn't have, and that you admit that you went to a space without that storage. Us having it not in the, you know, application is an issue. So we're bound by the evidence that was presented to the hearing examiner, and I can't go against the recommendation of the staff only because the evidence is clear that she did not rule outside of, you know, this evidence. There's nothing I see to the contrary that this ruling was, you know, out of whack.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to go next?
I agree with Commissioner Maggios and Commissioner Charity. You know, it isn't our job to reweigh the evidence. The hearing examiner was the finder of fact. There are many times when we sit here and we think, oh, if I were the hearing examiner, I may have come out with a different decision. But there was, in fact, evidence in the record that supports the hearing examiner's decision. in this case. Therefore, I think we're compelled to affirm that hearing examiner's decision. So I too will support staff's recommendation to us this evening.
Thank you.
I agree with everything that Commissioner Gregoire just said.
Okay. Just very quickly, Chair, I just want to, I agree with what the commissioners have said, but, and again, to add a little bit more, is that there is nothing under the RSO that would prohibit the landlord to assess the annual general adjustment, the rent increases, as Commissioner Charity mentioned. So although there was a dispute on the maintenance issue and other related stuff, so the owner still has a right to impose annual rent increases. Why? Because the RSO also allows the rent decrease if their services are reduced or taken away. So it's a balance. So that's why the RSO allows the rent increase if there lack of maintenance. So, but at the same time, I want to mention that in West Hollywood, there is a high maintenance standards for the units, and the tenants deserve to live in a good environment, in a healthy and safe conditions, and that's why these type of issues the department takes seriously. And I want to encourage the landlord to do everything is possible to provide a high level of maintenance for the unit. As for the tenant, if the tenant believes that there are some other rights that may be covered under California Civil Code, that the tenant should probably consult with an attorney, but that would be outside of the jurisdiction of the RSO. So, and in regards to the staff's recommendation, I agree with the analysis, and I believe that the examiner's decision was based on the record evidence, and the examiner didn't err in the decision, and I'm prepared to support the staff's recommendation in this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would agree with my fellow commissioners' comments. One thing I would say to the property owner is, I believe when you say that, perhaps you didn't purchase the air conditioner that was in the unit when the tenant moved in, but once that property is in the unit, it becomes a housing service. I am a landlord, and there's certain things I don't provide for my tenants. Usually it's window coverings. I consider that to be a very personal choice. However, if a tenant has left window coverings behind and the new tenant wants it, I do an addendum to lease saying window coverings left by prior tenant, not a housing service provided by the landlord, will not be replaced. Just acknowledging that it's there, but it's not mine, you can have it. So just be cautious to realize what is your property as the owner of the building and what might have just been left behind in a prior tenant, and to clarify that upon new tenancy.
Thank you. And I agree with everything that's been said. Just to explain a little bit further, I personally would have, had I been the hearing examiner, I would have agreed that the storage unit was part of it. However, the hearing examiner did have evidence, and I understand why she decided that the storage unit, she could not justify including in the unit as a service. So if I were in her position, I would have went the other way, but unfortunately in our position here, we have to set that aside, our own personal beliefs, and just examine whether the hearing examiner had evidence to support her claim, and in this case, she does. I think we've pretty much talked about everything else. I think Commissioner Charity said it extremely well, that the two of you could easily blame the RSO in this case. All of these are, none of these are intentional. These are all misunderstandings, and and now you have a better understanding of what the laws are and what the rent stabilization ordinance requires, in providing new flooring every 7 years and painting every 4 years, and with the rent increases, the annual the annual increases. So it sounded like in your testimonies that the two of you have had some successful dealings with each other, and it sounds like the landlord does want the tenant to remain in the unit, and I think it was, it's good to hear, hopefully it's true, but it's good to hear that you have already made some of these improvements and corrections. So let's hopefully you can end this tonight and go home and blame the RSO.
May I add one? Sure. I just wanted to add for the tenant to understand the ordinance, which is 17.28.040, in regard to the annual general adjustment. And a landlord is only ineligible to impose that annual adjustment if the unit has not been registered or re-registered. So they could always take that annual, as long as the unit is registered and has been re-registered, no matter what is happening in between, they could take that annual adjustment. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the Commission adopts the resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission 18-524, affirming in part and reversing in part the hearing examiner's decision in application D-4287. That's the one.
Which part are we reversing? I think we're just affirming.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, let me read it again. There is no reversal. A resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood affirming the hearing examiner's decision on application D-4287 that pertains to 969 North Larrabee Street, Unit Number 1.
And I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Maggio?
Aye.
Commissioner Gregoire?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Keefe?
Aye.
Commissioner Topchian?
Aye.
Commissioner Charity?
Aye.
Vice Chair Bergstein?
Aye.
Chair Kerpes?
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. The hearing examiner's decision is affirmed. Thank you to both parties for being here this evening, and wish you the best of luck. We'll now move to, yes.
Can I raise an issue related to the appeal from the last meeting? It occurred to me while we were actually looking at the resolution that we actually did not adopt a resolution last meeting, I don't think, because we were going
to have some changes, correct?
So the minutes that we approved reflect that we actually adopted a resolution, but I don't believe we did. So I think the city needs to bring the resolution back to us at some point.
This was a resolution, this was on 4252 CD or 4295?
Resolution 18-523 was the proposed resolution.
523.
So it
I
looks
don't
like you.
believe we actually adopted it.
You made changes to the resolution?
Yes, because remember we
Did you get those down?
we waived the 6-month waiting period.
Oh, was that the
She
only
actually
change?
wasn't here, right?
Oh,
it
I
was
see.
the
It was John
Jonathan was
Hall.
stepping in, and I believe I have a draft here of it.
Of the new one?
It appears so. This is the new one.
Okay, then I would recommend that you adopt that tonight, and
Okay.
then that would be great.
Good
Thank
eye.
you.
All right. So why don't I pass this
Yeah, let's look at it.
around for now, and then we will come back to it. And we will amend the minutes to show that we did that tonight, or just delete that portion out of the minutes.
I would recommend that you amend the minutes to say the motion was approved with the amendment, with the change to waive the 6-month waiting period. If that was the only change, I think you can just amend the minutes to reflect that change.
I believe that was the only change. Is that your recollection?
That's the only thing I recall being changed.
Yeah,
just-
that was the
Just
only
the
thing.
addition of waiving the
Right.
6-month
Right.
waiting period.
Okay.
And then just
Tom,
take another
did you
vote
get
on
that,
those.
the change? Because I didn't. You got it? Okay.
And then
So-
just vote on the amended minutes.
I think the language is on page 4. the actual language of the amended resolution we voted on.
Indeed, it says waiving the 6-month waiting period, so it's already reflected in the minutes.
On the issue of the heating in the bedroom, that was the reason why I wanted to waive the 6-month period.
Right, and because we had some indication from the council at the time that the law was a bit ambiguous,
Right.
if you recall, that they could have been argued one way or the other, so we wanted to make sure we didn't have any barriers to that.
So that decision is reflected in your minutes, so you don't have to change the minutes, and so at this point, you're just looking at the actual
Just making
modified
sure we adopt
resolution.
Okay, so it makes no
Well,
difference.
it said we adopted a resolution, that would just have to be deleted.
Yeah, so just, so you don't even have to vote again, you can just read, Mr. Kirby's will pass it around, and you can just affirm that it reflects what you decided.
Okay.
Is that agreeable?
Yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we will move to our second appeal.
So we are, or were we not adopting the
Oh, okay, I got
actual
here late,
resolution?
so-
Shall I move that we adopt the resolution 18-523?
I think we did that on the last meeting.
Well, we made a motion we made the motion that's reflected here.
What do we
like-
Well, you're
Right.
correct. So the
Resolution.
actual resolution was not
Right.
in the form that you approved it was not before you. So to be perfectly accurate, we'll go ahead and adopt the resolution as before you that's accurate to what you decided last time.
Right, so would you like me to
Yeah,
read
whoever
into
has
the?
the resolution,
Sure.
if you could just make a motion.
Right. So I would like to make a motion adopting Resolution 18-523, affirming the hearing examiner's decision and waiving the 6-month period for filing a new decrease application on the issue of the heating in the bedroom.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call.
Commissioner Maggio,
Aye.
Commissioner Gregoire,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Keefe,
Aye.
Commissioner Topchian,
Aye.
Commissioner Charity,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bergstein,
Aye.
Chair Kerpies.
Aye. Motion carries, so that resolution D, or 18,
523.
RC 18523 has been approved, and I will sign that tonight. All right, thank you. The other one, I've just been informed that the other one has been withdrawn this evening, the other appeal?
That's correct.
Okay, so we will not be.
Email.
So we'll move on to new business. 2018-2019 allowable annual general adjustment, AGA, of rents for rent-stabilized properties and adjusted relocation fees for displaced tenants.
Sorry, just setting up here. Tonight we're announcing the annual general adjustment that would be effective September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019. As we know, the West Hollywood Municipal Code Section 17.36.020 defines how the annual general adjustment is calculated. The authorized percentage increase shall be equal to 75% of the percentage increase in the consumer price index reported as of May of the prior year and May of the current year, rounded to the nearest 1/4 on 1%. So in May 2017, the Los Angeles Riverside Orange County CPI for all urban consumers was 255.674. As of May 2018, the same index was 266.148, amounting to an increase of 10.474 raw data points, or a 4.10 increase. 75% of the 4.10 increase is 3.07%. Rounded that to the nearest 1/4 of 1% results in a general adjustment of 3.0%. This again is effective for the 12 months beginning September 1st, 2018 and ending August 31st, 2019. Vice Chair Bergstein asked if we could provide a link of how we find these numbers through the Consumer Price Index, and I can have that available for you at the screen behind you. This behind you is the actual link to the CPI. It's https://www.bls.gov/regions/west/news-release/Los Angeles.htm. And when we go to that link, it'll take us to this information here, which this is how we get these numbers. This is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and if we refer back to that 266.148, I believe was the number that was for May 2018, we go down to this table here. It says Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim region, and under all items for May 2018, we have 266.148. So I just wanted to have this information available if people are interested to look this up from their homes. The other part of this is the actual relocation fees. The relocation fees are increased by the percentage change in the rent of primary residence, a component of the CPIU index for the Los Angeles Riverside Orange County region. In May 2017, the rent of primary residence component of Los Angeles was $345.534. As of May 2018, the same component was $362.688, amounting to an increase of 17.154 raw data points, or a 4.96% increase. The current unrounded fees have been increased. For 0 bedrooms, the increase went from $6,785 to $7,121. For a 1-bedroom, the increase went from $9,580 to $10,055. For a 2-bedroom, the increase went from $12,904 to $13,544. For 3 or more bedrooms, the increase went from $17,030 to $17,875. And for qualified tenants, which is a 62 or older, a disabled, or a tenant with a dependent minor child, a terminally ill, or a moderate income, it went from $17,960 to $18,851. And for lower income tenants, as defined by the California Health and Safety Code, section 50079.5, the increase went from $22,616 to $23,738. One of the other things that Chair Bergstein wanted us, or Vice Chair Bergstein wanted us to look at, is make a comparison of what Santa Monica and Los Angeles do. I did bring some information. Santa Monica does very similar to what we do, but the region that they look into is Los Angeles, Riverside, Orange County. They do also a CPI for 12 months, but they go from March to March. We go from May to May. And they round to the nearest decimal place. That's how they come up with their AGA. The city of LA does the same region that we do, but they say that if their increase is less than 3%, it'll be 3%. And if the increase is more than 3, then it'll go up to 8. And that's it.
Thank you. Can you remind us what the and if you don't know this, that's fine. I can look online, I think. But the base for determining, how did we decide the base rate for 0 bedrooms, 1 bedroom? Did we go 6 months, or do you recall how we decided that? We just did this, kind of reshuffled that formula about a year and a half ago.
Are you talking about how we came up with those relocation amounts?
Yeah.
Yeah, they took into account how much it would cost for people to move, the cost that they would need for purposes of reconnecting services in their new location, as well as how much, depending on whether they were low income or moderate income, how much they had to have to give as down payment for security deposit and so on and so forth. So it had several factors involved with that.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Just how the residents, tenants and the landlords both will be notified of these new fees, relocation fees I'm talking about. So is there any mailing to the residents, or it's just available online and at the City Hall?
Our July newsletter, which will be coming out most likely either by tomorrow or first thing on Monday, does have the announcement of the AGA and also the announcement of the relocation fee. So those are going out to tenants and landlords, and it will also be available online, and people coming to City Hall will have availability of it at our front counters.
Okay. Also, can you also tell me how the city is informing the owners about the increases, the percentage, the new percentage that the owners are allowed to increase the rent? You were sending the forms to the owners, the actual calculations.
The 30-day notice to increase rent, is that what you're referring to?
Notice, yeah.
The 30-day notice to increase rent will be available online and at City Hall.
But I remember that the residents would get some mail with the actual notice that would show how to calculate the increase.
The 30-day notice that the city provides does allow for that calculation, so it's a blank form and they fill in the numbers in it. Okay. This year's newsletter is going out without that. But we may do some other type of mailing to provide that to landlords. Normally it's sent out with the landlord newsletter. That's going to be different this year because the way we're sending the newsletters is different than how we've sent it in other years. But staff will be looking into how we will now notify landlords or provide them with a copy of these forms via mail.
Because I think that was one of the great things that the city provided, unlike other rent stabilized jurisdictions. I don't believe, they mail out, they mail those forms. I think that was a really great service to both the tenants and the landlords, to apply the correct calculations. And also, just want to, maybe you can make some comments about the rent rounding up. Sometimes the calculations would show the amount that, like, the owners would round up to the nearest dollar, and that would not be permitted, obviously, under the ordinance, right? That they should apply the exact percentage, exact amount, and they cannot round up to the nearest dollar.
That is correct. They are not allowed to round up. It's whatever the percentage calculation is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have a couple of questions. On page 74, where it lists the relocation fees, it says effective July 1st, 2016. Should that say 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it should say 2018.
Okay. Do we need to do anything on that?
I think we are...
The statement is
when
correct.
we announced the annual general adjustment of 3% effective September 1st, 2018, and the new relocation fees effective July 1st, I think when we approve that, then we're good.
Okay, great. And one other question. You were asked and explained what the other jurisdictions do. I might have misheard, but here we do 0.75 or 75% of the CP Is it 0.75 in those other jurisdictions as well?
For City of Santa Monica, yes. The City of LA has a different calculation. But whatever calculation they come up with, it's not where the amounts will vary. It'll either be 3% or 8%. So that's why I wanted to keep it as basic as possible so I don't confuse anybody.
Okay, thank you.
So Los
Probably-
Angeles isn't a range? It's
No.
a 3 or 8?
No.
It's either
No,
3 or 8.
It's, three is the floor, 8 is the ceiling, so that there are increases in between, 4 or 5%, but the 3% is the minimum, regardless of, as Ms. Avila said, regardless of the CPI calculation, so it's always 3%. But the maximum can go up to 8%, but there were years when the LA assessed 4% or 5%.
Did somebody else have a question? I thought I heard something. Nope. All right.
I just had comments.
Okay.
Gloria, first just wanted to thank you for jumping in. I think you got these requests from me a little late in the game, but whenever I go to an apartment owners association meeting, I get hit by landlords going, where do these calculations come from? And I am not a financial geek, for lack of a better term, so having that link where anyone who's interested can click on that link and go and see where that raw data comes from, I think is really good information. And I did want to have us compare us to other rent-stabilized jurisdictions within our county, which is why I asked for the Santa Monica and for Los Angeles. I would encourage, if we can get that worksheet form out to the landlords. I know you and I discussed this week that not all landlords are taking advantage of doing the registration online. They're still doing it by hand, by paper, so there may still be a lot of property owners or managers who prefer that paper experience than going online. So I would encourage, if we have a way to get that AGA form, calculation form out to the property owners, I think it would be of a benefit. But again, thank you for pitching in and bringing us this information.
Absolutely.
Can I just have one comment? I agree with Commissioner Topchian that it is helpful for even the tenants to have that form. And even I think, and I don't know what the format was and why we couldn't do it this year, but even if it were a shrunk down version and just in there, so at least tenants know what it looks like and can understand, so when they see it, they've kind of processed this a little bit. I know it's been helpful for me as a tenant to have an idea of what 3% actually looks like. 3% is actually a high number for us, at least in my time residing here in West Hollywood.
Oh, one last question, I'm sorry. The new relocation fees, will those new fees get included? We had a agenda item earlier this year about a framework for landlords and tenants who might wish to enter into a voluntary buyout. And I think part of that information was showing that if it was an involuntary eviction, these would be the fees they would be entitled to. Will these new fees be reflected, or can we find out if it's going to be reflected in the new fees will be reflected in that framework for voluntary buyouts of tenancies?
Right, and I think it would be if that's what is effective when that buyout, is it a buyout ordinance that we're working on?
I think it's just, it was a framework so that landlords and tenants could have something to work with, so that a landlord wouldn't go, I'll pay you $1,000 to
Right.
move out, when in reality, if it was involuntary, they would have been entitled to this much. The city was just showing these are the involuntary buyout
Yes.
fees.
They would apply.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other comments? We just announcing this? Do we motion to approve this announcement?
This is just an announcement.
Okay, so we are hereby announcing it.
Receive and file.
Yep, well, just announced. It has been announced. So now we'll move on to the ad hoc subcommittee update, and before, you'll be giving the update on this, correct?
I'm just curious as to if it's still necessary for you to recuse, since we're not going to be doing any substantive discussion. It's basically just going to be a report from that last meeting.
I don't think the report has changed, right, since
Comments
the,
from we did have one meeting in between, but there'll be no substantive discussion. So, I mean, if you feel the need to recuse, have at it, but I'm not sure. Allison, I guess I'll look in your direction.
Well, in an abundance of caution,
Okay.
yeah, I think we should proceed
Okay.
as if there was a...
And we do have one public speaker, so.
Okay.
I will recuse myself from the, as it relates to the retrofitting, seismic retrofitting.
And I also will, I live in a rent-stabilized unit that I'm a tenant in, and that's on the list of properties that are likely to need retrofitting. So it's possible that will change with more legal advice, and that I don't ultimately have to recuse myself, but for now, out of an abundance of caution, I am doing so.
Don't go far.
Was there a public comment? Vice Chair Bergstein, were you going to?
You just wanted to, are they out of the room? Okay. We do have one public comment. Call the podium Eric John Schmidt. You state your name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Eric John Schmidt. I do live in West Hollywood on the east side. I find it strange that you're the Rent Control Commission, but all you do is raise the rent. There is never an opportunity for you to lower the rent. I know Rob Bergstein here is a landlord, so of course he's going to try and squeeze as much as he can out of his tenants. But I think it's absolutely disgusting. And when the election comes around, by the way, I'm running for re-election. I'm running for election in West Hollywood. I'm going to recommend that any city council member who votes to pass the retrofitting onto tenants be elected out of office, including 2019 and 2020. So we can start fresh. And then we can get a whole new commission for rent control. I think it's absolutely disgusting that you people do nothing but try and get more money out of the people who have the least amount of money. These people have to decide between medicine and food or rent. And they can't live on the street, so they choose rent. So you are taking their medicine away, their food away, so they can live in their homes. I think it's absolutely disgusting, and you all should be ashamed of yourself. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just briefly report. We had a meeting, I think it was 2 Saturdays ago at the auditorium in West Hollywood Park. It was fairly well attended. We did have some technical difficulties in getting the PowerPoint presentation going. I do want to say one of the comments that Peter Noonan made that he just really clarified it at that meeting was that by the city requiring retrofitting of our rent-stabilized housing, it is saving rent stabilization. We get people going, oh, this is the end of rent stabilization. It is not, but it really, it's saving our rent stabilized housing and our ordinance, because I think we all recognize the fact that if a building were to come down for whatever reason, any natural disaster, any new housing in its place would not be covered by the ordinance. And it seemed that the public was grasping that concept. So it was a fairly well-attended meeting, some good comments, and I look forward to, we have our discussion on July 26th is when, July 12th, that this commission will work on formulating a recommendation to City Council on how to proceed with any cost-sharing agreement. Any of my fellow commissioners have questions? I think we can call in. Where do they go?
Good evening. So we will move right into public comments. And do we have any other public comments?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Then we will move into commission comments.
I would like to ask the commission if we could adjourn in honor of those that were killed at the Annapolis Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland.
I would second that.
Are there any objections?
No.
All right. We will do that. Any other comments this evening?
I would just like to thank staff tonight. You were great tonight. Thank you for leading us through this meeting and answering our questions, which at some points were difficult, and getting us through the math, Gloria. Nice to see you. And just always, thank you.
Second that.
I would add that I'd like to thank staff for the article in our packet tonight about Berlin's affordable housing crisis. And I read through it at one point, and it's actually really, really interesting. There's a comment in there that says in Germany's constitution that housing is a right. So that's a right enshrined in the German constitution. It's too bad we don't have that here in the United States.
I was interested to hear during the appeal that there was the issue of the unsigned letter, and I'd be interested to learn more about the process for testimony for hearing examiners and what tenants are told, if there's guidelines, like best practices to get something notarized or bring somebody in. And I don't know if maybe we could have maybe everybody who's been here way longer than me knows how that works. But if not, I'd be interested to hearing more about it, or I don't know if I should just ask staff individually, or if there's a way to do that.
I'd be happy to let you know the tools that we help landlords and tenants prepare for the hearing, because there are a lot of them.
Wonderful, thanks.
Any other comments? All right. Then we will move to director's comments, staff comments.
I just want to thank you for, again, your patience on this packet. It's been really, really hectic. I know Peter's been out since last week on Wednesday. Allison was on vacation. So I really, really want to thank you for your patience. And, we lost Laura, and we haven't been able to gain somebody else for her position. So it's been a really tricky season for us. But I just want to thank you for that. And I also want to make a correction on the look-ahead calendar. I had said that the July 12th meeting had 2 appeals, but there will be no appeals so that we can concentrate on that recommendation that the commissioners are going to be presenting to City Council on cost sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's being handled, and I think they're working on it, but I'm still waiting, and I think my fellow Commissioner O'Keefe is waiting as well, from feedback from the city attorney, and Jonathan Hollab, I think, is working on it regarding recusing ourselves on that item. So I know they're working as fast as they can, but if they could work a little faster and get us
They're doing
final.
the best they can. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments? Oh, I guess any other questions for staff?
I just wanted to ask if this July 12th meeting is going to be the last for the commission to discuss the cost sharing, right? Because that's when we come up with the recommendations for the city council.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, that concludes our staff comments, and I believe that brings us to adjournment. The next regular meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission will be held on July 12th.
First meeting, which was one of our longest ever.